Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be covering what would happen if Deku had a wind quirk. And you know, this is a pretty interesting one to cover considering the fact that we've already seen Inasa having a wind quirk in My Hero and pulling off some crazy things with it. So I started thinking, hey, let's just give Deku a wind quirk and see what happens. And taking a little inspiration from this anime and a little bit of this sprinkled in there, I finally came up with a bunch of attacks and attack names that I figured would make for some really cool aura farming. So if you guys go on to enjoy this one and you want the next part in 24 hours because it's already recorded, then smash the like button because the like goal for today's video is going to be 1,000 likes. And if you guys can somehow break 2,000, I'll drop the full 1 hour and some change minute what if for you guys. So with that said, show your boy some support seeing as my part ones don't usually do too well, and enjoy.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Begin our story to the sound of screams being heard from the public. A villain had just used his quirk to transform into this gigantic pink, sludgy monster thing. I don't even know how I would describe it, but the point is, the second that this villain would transform, he would throw a car towards the direction of the police cruiser that had just stopped him for a mugging in progress. It's at this point that the car would be about to hit some civilians, and this is when suddenly the pro hero Endeavor would arrive, shooting his flames at the car and causing it to blow up just before it could injure the civilians, landing nearby to use a fire flame fist against the villain. After this attack would land, the villain would go unconscious, as we would suddenly see a van from the nearby distance opening its doors to reveal 3 more villains. Out of nowhere, a little dude would rush towards the direction of the villain, trying to take pictures acting as though he was a photographer, and with Endeavor screaming at him, "Get lost, civilian, this is pro hero business." The man would say, "I just love your work, Endeavor," before then using his quirk called Solar Flare to completely blind Endeavor and the surrounding people. They would go on to toss the man into their van and try to get away, driving extremely recklessly all the while they would be doing this, as out of nowhere you would hear the sound of a howl and a man landing down on the ground using his quirk, Beast Mimicry, an ability that essentially enhances this dude's offensive capabilities to the max. He's kind of like that one dog dude that's in the My Hero Academia school system, you know, the guy that's always howling and growling, but way better. And so immediately stepping in front of the car that's already traveling at 80 miles an hour, mind you, this man proceeds to stand in front of it and grab the whole thing and throw it across literally the street. At this point, the man would go towards the vehicle and tell everybody that they're done for. The small miniature man would try to use the Solar Flare quirk, but using his enhanced senses thanks to the abilities of his quirk, the man would go on to take all of them down, with Endeavor shortly arriving afterwards. Immediately, the fiery hero would go on to say, "Thanks for your help, Battle Beast, but I don't think I really needed it." To which we would then see cameras flashing all over Endeavor, with him actually being the one to receive all the credit. This would leave Izuku's father, Hiyashi Midoriya, in a very pissed off mood, because that had been the second time that the media had confused his efforts for Endeavor's. And so as the man would leave, he would glare at Endeavor, thinking to himself that that's a garbage hero and he's much better, even stronger than he is. But the public will just have to wait to see on that. He would make his way home, and upon arriving, the man would enter the house where Inko would be inside with a newborn baby, his first child, Izuku Midoriya. With the boy having a bit of a strange appearance. See, the boy was born with the same horns that his father has at all times, but he had his mother's hair, having white grayish hair instead of his father's dirty blonde. The man would smile, ruffling Izuku's hair before telling Inko that he's hungry. Make something up. She would see that she actually already did, and waiting on the table would be a plate that the man would quickly scarf down. After this, he would make his way to the room, throw his belongings as far as he can, and take a 7-hour nap. And yes, I do mean nap, because this dude's normal sleeping hours could range from anywhere from 2 days to 3 days, all thanks to his beast quirk. So as the man would wake up, he would look at Inko going on to tell her to do a good job raising that boy, that someday he's gonna make for a phenomenal hero, even stronger than he is, as he would look at the boy seeing his horns and smile, saying that after all, he unlocked his quirk. And seeing as that theory about quirks getting stronger every generation is turning out to be more and more true, he can't wait to see just how strong his boy will be. Who knows, maybe he'll be able to actually take a fight seriously when he's just in middle school. The man would have a little bit of an evil grin before walking off, and Inko would simply hold the young Izuku, saying that Izuku is gonna be just perfect. This is when we would fast forward about 4 years, and Izuku would now be in the Quirk doctor's office, with the father and Inko inside there, as we would then hear a knock at the door, and a doctor would come inside, not Dr. Ujiko, who would go on to inform them that they have good news. Their son has an incredible quirk. The man would smile, saying of course he does. He was born with my quirk. As the man would go on to tell him that that's actually not the case. The young boy was actually born with a different quirk. The man would raise an eyebrow at this, going, my son wasn't born with my quirk? As the doctor would go on to explain that the boy actually has his mother's quirk, with his appearance simply being a chip off the old block. The man would growl at this before saying that that's impossible. Those horns are something that it's innate to his quirk. He must have his abilities. But the doctors would say that as many tests as they ran, he didn't possess to have that. At first they had thought that it was some sort of hybrid, but no, the boy only possesses the ability to control wind. This in turn would piss off Hiyashi, who, staring at the direction of Izuku with eyes that could kill, would say, can't believe I was so hyped up on you. Looks like you're just a failure. As we would then see Izuku looking down, feeling horrible about his quirk, as he would look to his mom and then to his younger brother, who would crack a smile, trying to lift up the mood in the area, kind of sensing that something was going wrong. As Izuku would look at his brother, he would simply look back down, avoiding the gaze of his father, as they would leave the area, and the man had planned to do like a whole surprise thing and take his son out to celebrate, but after that, there was a no way. He was pretty disappointed that it wasn't his quirk that Izuku awakened. Kind of like a dad if he was to really want a boy, but then he gets a girl at the gender reveal party and then he's just depressed. That's kind of the reaction that we would get from Izuku's father, except times 100, because the dude is beast, and when he gets mad, trust me, he gets mad. Inko would go on to, tell Izuku that his quirk is wonderful, and even if his quirk doesn't go on to let him become a hero, he could do a lot of things still. With the reason that she would say this being because of the fact that her quirk that allows her to manipulate wind is pretty damn weak. And you know what? Izuku's actually is as well. But it's not going to be staying that way for long, because Inko's quirk was never meant to be weak. It was actually an incredibly overpowered quirk, which she never took the time to properly train, since Inko would have never aspired to be a hero or anything of that. In fact, she never even thought she would marry Izuku's father, but one thing led to another, and the man just swept her off her feet after saving her. But even that was so long ago, since the man's changed a lot since then. His hero career hasn't exactly been going the way that he had imagined it. Instead of rising to become one of the greatest top 10 heroes, instead he finds himself stuck at 15th, not exactly finding himself too popular with the people, and this started to heavily affect his attitude, thanks to the fact that that beast quirk had started low-key taking over himself. So with that said, Izuku would grow up in a bit of a broken home. What do I mean a very broken home? The dude literally grows up in favoritism personified. Anytime Izuku wanted something and he asked his dad and he was like, Dad, can you get me this? I need it for school. He'd be like, go get it, go ask your mother, or get it yourself, you're old enough to work for it. But anytime his younger brother, who mind you does actually have the same quirk as him, asked for anything, he was just the golden child. He always got everything he wanted whenever he wanted, and there was no questions asked. In fact, when it came to even training, by the time that the boy turned 5 years old and Izuku was 6, his dad was already starting to train him to become a hero. And where was he left? Well, nowhere, because he had received absolutely zero training. Inko would try to help Izuku by training her in the best way that she knows possible, but it wouldn't exactly do too much, because Inko's wind control of her quirk essentially amounts to allowing her to shoot light breezes of wind and create these little mini wind tornadoes in her hand that, if she's lucky, would be able to pick up a couple of leaves. Which is why I hope you guys are now starting to kind of get the picture of the bad situation Izuku's left with. However, even throughout all that, Izuku has to admit one thing. he has a quirk, and that is a big advantage. So regardless of how weak it is, Izuku vows that he was going to make sure that his quirk became so powerful that his father would have no choice but to accept him. The young Izuku would begin training every single day, over and over and over again for hours on end. Kinda similar to how Toyo was when he was learning to control his quirk. But obviously Izuku's not going to be having the backlash of the quirk not being suited to his body. It's literally perfectly suited. And so, with that being the case, Izuku would make it grow stronger and stronger every day, eventually getting to the level of Inko in about a week thanks to his insistent work, and getting to the level where Izuku could create a breeze to actually move an entire person. This training would continue over and over the course of years, to the point where eventually Izuku was capable of forming vortexes of wind that were so incredibly fast they could literally cut people. The abilities that Izuku managed to create with his wind quirk were absolutely busted by the time that he even made it to middle school. Because I do mean it when I say if Izuku truly wanted to, he probably could already become a pro hero. The dude is already incredibly powerful. And what's interesting about this is that Izuku would become this strong, never having told his father about that. Because as the years passed and Izuku grew stronger and stronger, trying to show his father, every single time that he would try to get him to watch his progress and see how much better he's doing, his dad would always ignore it, come up with an excuse, or say that he was busy. And Izuku was tired of it. If his father hadn't cared about him at all, in order to even spare 20 seconds of his life just to watch Izuku, he didn't need praise. He didn't even need to be told he was doing a good job or that he was proud of him. He just wanted his dad to be there. So, with his dad pretty much failing him after the fact that he was born without his quirk, Izuku had decided that he was just gonna have to crush his father in the hero rankings himself, and force his father to not only look at him, but look up at him. Because Izuku swore that if it was the last thing he did, he would become a top 10 pro hero and show his father just how easy it truly was. With the only two people that actually know how strong Izuku truly is being his younger brother, which Izuku doesn't actually have qualms with, and you would think by the way that I broke things down he would not like his brother because he's like jealous, but no, he loves his brother, and that's always been the case. His younger brother respects him and feels bad for his older brother, but Izuku's already explained that this is just how their life is, and if his dad wants to act like that, let him. Because at the end of the day, Inko had always favorited Izuku, and the dad had always favorited the younger brother. So it's not like Izuku was just completely left out of the picture. Whenever his dad wasn't around, their childhood was pretty average and normal. And so with that being the case, every day in middle school, the two brothers would arrive at the same school, with Izuku walking into the classroom and sitting down dropping his books. It's at this point that somebody would walk over towards Izuku, which would be Izuku's childhood friend, Maya, who actually also happens to be a hero in training with a quirk that's pretty interesting because it essentially allows her to create these really cool pink barriers, and she could even use those for mobility, sort of like a hamster ball. She still has yet to figure out how to actually make the barrier fly, but trust, she's gonna figure that out sometime soon. But anyways, as she would walk over towards Izuku, she would sit next to him asking how training was yesterday, to which Izuku would say that it was fine, it was fun, it was more of the same old, with her saying that his father wasn't around to check it out again, was he? He would nod, saying that no, he wasn't, but he doesn't care. He wouldn't care at all what the old man thinks of him anyways. She would look down, knowing that that couldn't be further from the truth, as she would then go on to ask Izuku what school he decided to go to. Her already knowing the answer, but simply asking just to, make some small talk with Deku. Deku would look towards her before saying that she already knows the answer. He's going to UA, since that's where All Might graduated from, and that was a school that his father actually wanted to go to once upon a time, but he ended up having to resort to a different hero school. Izuku would smirk at this point, as Maya would smile, say, "There you go. There's the normal Izuku that I know and love." Izuku would look towards her before saying, yeah, whatever. Well, can we just sit down and do some class? And in case you guys haven't noticed, Izuku kind of has like a little bit of like a Bakugo-esque attitude. Not really Bakugo in the sense that he's a jerk, but kind of just like a loudmouth, like rough, like tough kind of kid. You get what I'm saying? So anyways, with that said, the school day would be over and and once that would be the case, Izuku and Maya would make their way towards an arcade since Maya had convinced Izuku to finally take a rest day. You can't train all the time. Izuku would look at her being like, fine, I'll take 2 hours off of my training, but that's it. As Maya would smile saying that he's the best. Afterwards, the two of them make their way towards the arcade, and once they're about to enter inside through a different entrance that they know the employees go in through, but Maya's older brother works there, so she's able to go in through there, suddenly the two would be met with a strange green bottle that would open and burst open, revealing the sludge villain to have actually been there. With the two of them seeing this villain pop up, since All Might in this timeline would still drop the water bottle, don't ask me how because I have no clue, I just wanted the sludge villain to be introduced here. So anyways, as the sludge villain would pop up out of the ground and Izuku and Maya would both look at this, they would both be sitting there just going like, what the heck? And as the sludge villain would come out, he would say, looks like that idiot managed to drop me. Give me your body, kid. The villain would scream as he would lunge towards the direction of Izuku, with Maya placing the both of them inside of a barrier. Izuku at this reaction would raise an eyebrow looking at Maya, telling her to put this thing down, that he won't be able to use his quirk effectively if he's in here with her. And so Maya would start blushing saying sorry, as she would pretty much create like a air hole where Izuku like plops right out of, and she's still stuck inside the barrier. Izuku would tell her to reinforce that thing because if she doesn't, she's gonna fly away miles. And so Maya, kind of closing her eyes, but kind of peeking a little bit because she wanted to see how cool Izuku was, would proceed to watch on as the sludge villain would say, "You're cocky, kid. I was worried when she created that barrier. I thought I wasn't going to be able to get to you. But since you decided to make things so easy, I'll make sure it's not that painful. Trust me, it'll be over soon, kid." The sludge villain would rush towards the direction of Izuku, however, it couldn't touch him because Izuku had created a very, very high wind pressure wind barrier. Or not like a barrier, but like an armor that serves as a barrier that surrounds his entire body, blowing wind so fast that the moment that the sludge villain got even close, that thing literally splattered on the wall, with the sludge villains looking at Izuku and be like, how the heck did you do that? What kind of quirk is that anyways? The sludge villain would ask, as Izuku would smirk towards its direction, telling it that it's the quirk that's gonna take him down. Before air would start compressing him from every angle, bottom, sides, it would pretty much crush him into a cube, and Izuku would go on to ask the sludge villain if he's gonna behave himself if he lets him go. The sludge villain would be stunned, his body being compressed into this cube-like shape, with it trying to beg and scream for its life, saying, Kid, I was just kidding. I was just trying to get away from All Might. Please, let me go. But as Izuku would hear it beg for itself, Izuku would have a bit of a creepy smile appear, Maya noticing it, and Izuku saying, "Nah, I don't think I will," as he would crush the sludge villain, knocking it out and causing it to splatter everywhere. Izuku in this moment would go on to just leave the sludge villain there at the scene, with him and Maya walking off. Eventually, about 2 minutes would pass, and Izuku would drop her off with her older brother, with him going on to say that that's enough of that because he has to get back to his training. He would apologize saying that he has to go, and as Maya would give him a pouty face trying to say that he needs to stay because their 2 hours aren't up, Izuku would say actually they are, pointing to the clock, to which Maya would scoff saying, "Whatever, I guess I'll see you at school tomorrow, you jerk," as Izuku would walk off waving to Maya as he would arrive home shortly after. It's at this point that Izuku would say, "I'm home," with Inko yelling from the kitchen, "Good, sweetie, I'm glad you're here. I actually need your help. I was cooking dinner and I forgot to get the best ingredient. It's your favorite. You think you can run by the store and go grab it for me?" So Izuku, hearing this, would say, "Of course I can do that, Mom. Just let me know what you need." So she tells him the list, gives him some money, and Izuku says, "I'll be back in a jiffy." As we would see Izuku walking out the door, looking both ways before propelling himself into the air and flying off towards the distance in the direction of the store. It's at this moment that Izuku would hear an explosion, and from the distance, Izuku could see what was going on. That stupid sludge villain that he had just taken out earlier had gone and caused more trouble. Izuku had hoped that that thing would learn its lesson and maybe crawl back into the sewer where it came from, but no. And as Izuku would sit there flying, thinking to himself that he needs to go pick up that thing from the grocery store first, he would do just that, thinking that the heroes will handle it, or his dad will. rolling his eyes. It's at this point that Izuku, buying the things that he needed, would then fly back over towards the incident, as it would have taken him about 2 minutes to do so, and looking towards the direction of where this was all taking place, Izuku would see that the sludge villain still wasn't handled. With multiple heroes on the scene, none of them even doing anything. Izuku, seeing this take place, would think to himself that just anybody could be a hero nowadays, as he would be about to fly off thinking that the heroes will eventually handle it, when suddenly Izuku could hear the growls of his father within the sludge villain, and taking a double turn looking towards the direction of the hero that was actually already fighting it, Izuku would notice that his father was actually about to be taken over by that thing, with him getting pissed off that this villain had even dared to lay its hand on his dad. So Izuku, flying towards the direction of the sludge villain as fast as humanly possible, Izuku would land in front of it before telling it that he told it to get lost, then saying, "Tornado Vortex!" as from his hand, this gigantic tornado like spinning cyclone of air would hit the sludge villain, dispersing it everywhere. I mean it, everywhere. Just as much as All Might would have done so in the original, that's exactly what would have happened. And just before the vortex could actually hit the building behind it, causing a lot of collateral damage, Izuku would cause the vortex to shoot up into the air, where it would quickly dissipate, literally changing the weather. Everybody watching this would be stunned, with Izuku now standing in front of his father, who was nearly unconscious, groggy from the situation, since he had been holding his breath for all of 2 minutes, thanks to, Izuku thinking that the heroes would handle it. And as Izuku would go over towards his father asking him how he was, his dad would stare back at him, smacking him away before telling Izuku that he didn't need his help, and he had that back there. And hearing this, Izuku would snap, saying, "The hell, old man? I just saved your life in front of all these people, and you still can't treat me like I'm your son? Go to hell, you bastard," before he would fly off, leaving everybody there with people having a bunch of questions. Did that kid just call that man dad? People would be shocked, saying, "What? There's no way, that's his son? His son handled the situation?" People start going over to him, asking him if he knew his son was that incredible, asking questions like, at what age did he develop his quirk? What is his quirk called? What's his name? What school is he going to? And the dad would growl, saying, "Leave me alone," before jumping off and leaving all the reporters dumbfounded. It's at this point that Izuku, making his way home with the things that he had needed, Inko would finish cooking dinner, and Izuku's father would walk through the door, yelling out, "Izuku, come here right now!" Izuku, looking at his father, would ask him what he wants, as he would go on to tell him why he never told him that he had a quirk that freaking strong. Izuku would look at him, telling him that he tried, but his lame excuse of a father never gave him the time of day. His dad would look at him, growling before calming down and saying, "Alright, Izuku, what are the limitations of your quirk, and how does it work?" Izuku, hearing this from his father, would look at him, telling him to come with him. They would make their way towards Izuku's room or training area, as he would go on to show his father a couple applications of his quirk, going on to say that he got a lot of these ideas from different anime and shows that he had watched growing up. His father would say that that's stupid, that there's no way that he really got that strong by simply watching cartoons all day. And Izuku would tell him that of course he didn't. He took inspiration from that and tried every freaking combination he possibly could to make his attacks work or make sense. Izuku told him that it took years upon years of training. And his father would look at him, going on to tell him that maybe he isn't such a disappointment after all. Izuku, hearing this from his father, would say, "The hell you just say, old man? You mean to tell me after showing you all this and even saving you, you still gotta be such a hard ass on me?" As his dad would look at him, growl, and slam the door shut, walking away. Izuku would be stuck in the room, grabbing at his hair, practically tearing it out, going, "Damn it, old man, why do you gotta be such a jerk?" With Izuku's younger brother walking in the room and asking if his dad did it again. Izuku would say, "Did what again? Acted like he doesn't care that I exist? Yeah, he did that." And his younger brother would tell him maybe some training will get his mind off of it. He would look at his brother, telling him, "Yeah, maybe some training will. Why don't you go into your beast form and we can fight a few rounds." As his younger brother would say, "What? No way, man, I'm not gonna fight you. I already lose to you when you're not pissed off. I'm not about to get into the ring with you when you're in this state." And Izuku would look at his brother, going on to tell him that that's probably true. He would sit down, going on to tell his younger brother if he wants to go out and get some food. So the two of them would make a quick run to Kane's and make their way back home, as Izuku would once again do his training. with him continuing this process of getting home, training, being home, training, eating, training, until eventually 10 months would pass and we would finally now find ourselves with Izuku at the front gates of UA. And as Izuku would be dropped off by Inko, his younger brother from the backseat window would go on to tell Izuku good luck, as the boy would now stare at the gigantic school before him, walking inside before taking the written exam and eventually making his way outside. As Izuku would sit there waiting for the proctor to say begin, Izuku would be thinking about all the attacks and combinations that he could use in this moment, thinking to himself that he's about to shock everyone, that every single year of training is about to show its fruits right now, and the moment that the test would begin, Izuku would immediately fly off towards the center of everything, with him using his wind quirk to cause every single robot in the vicinity, similar to what Inasa did with the balls. Y'all remember how this man proceeded to levitate everything and cause like 193 eliminations or something like that? That's what Izuku would do, but with the robots, levitating them into the air, every single one in his section, mind you. Izuku would then close his eyes as, channeling all of his quirk within his chest, he would proceed to then boom, like crush his hands, with the robots then being smashed as though they had been thrown into like some compost machine or something like that. Like, y'all know the junkyard where cars get smashed up into little like cubes? That's what Izuku did to the robots. So as all the robots would fall to the ground and the wind pressure in the entire area would have been like so like insane, like a hurricane, suddenly Principal Nezu would go on into the intercom saying, "Well, students, it appears that one of our students has taken out all of the robots. Everybody assigned to this section, make your way towards a different area." And as Izuku would hear that, he would go on to say that he apologizes. He just wanted to make sure UA knew exactly what they were getting into with him. And as Izuku would land, Izuku would make his way to leave. However, a 0-pointer would appear, and Izuku, turning around to see a gigantic robot standing there, would smile. Suddenly, Izuku would create a winged scythe in his hand and, slashing it at the air, would proceed to send 3 perfect slashes, which actually resemble a beast's claw that is just going at it and just like slinging it, you know, kind of like Wolverine, would proceed to destroy that thing in 3 different spots, causing a massive explosion to go off. After this, Izuku would look towards the cameras that are monitoring him, asking if they've got any more of those robots, saying that it's been a while since he's been able to let loose, and that nothing would be said. Izuku would simply roll his eyes before walking off, saying that this test was too damn easy. And as he would be about to leave, suddenly he would be greeted by a tiny little mouse. Izuku would stare at it, asking, "And who the hell are you?" with the Principal Nezu saying, "My name is Nezu, and I just so happen to be the principal at this academia," with Izuku saying, "What?"
I am here! Thanking you for making it to the end of the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with a friend, and stay plus ultra!